The Virgo influence is strong. It feels like own brand dark academia. I don't make the rules, except I do. Oh, it's so pretty. This is my time, but not before a sip of tea. Hello everybody, it's Sylvie. Welcome or welcome back to Tarot Magpie. I hope you're doing all kinds of good today. This video is going to be the vibes that I'm feeling for September and the decks on my desk to match up with it. So I have here a selection of things that kind of encapsulate the vibes that I'm feeling right now, what I'm feeling into, what I'm feeling drawn to. I have here with just a little sneak peek the decks that kind of match up with that. I've got 10 decks if I can count, and I might also go through the books that I want to be reading, but we will see. That may or may not get cut for time, but let me know if you're interested in books as well as decks. That's what's happening. Without further ado, I'm going to get into the bits and pieces on my desk, but not before a sip of tea. I'm going to begin with this cooking clips binder because it is the most out of place looking thing on my desk. This is what it says on the tin. This is a clippings binder. It's old, it's grimy, it's older than me. This was my mum's recipe collection. So it's full of magazine clippings from like way before Pinterest, and also recipes that my mum wrote down, all that sort of thing. And the reason this is on my desk is because one of the vibes that I'm feeling right now is I'm feeling domestic. I'm feeling like spending time in my own home, enjoying the space that I live in. I'm feeling very organized, which is also, there's a monthly planner here. I'm feeling like getting things straight and orderly and enjoying existing. Does that make any sense? A little bit nurtury. Maybe this is following on from August and the kind of inner child adjacent vibes that I was feeling then. I also did a decks for my inner teen video in August, so there's like a little bit of nostalgia mixed in, and this really encapsulates that. There's a little bit of nostalgia here, quite a lot of nostalgia if I'm honest, because like I say, this is full of my mum's handwriting. It's been around longer than I have. It was a fixture in our kitchen when I was a child and is a fixture in my kitchen now. I don't quite know that any of the decks I'm going to show you really feel like they match up with this, but this was the best example I could pull out that represented the kind of somewhat cozy, domestic, enjoying being at home, a little bit of like a nurturing kind of energy that I'm feeling a lot of right now. As mentioned, I've also got this monthly planner. This is extremely basic. It's literally just a blank, undated monthly planner that is housing all of my Tarot Magpie stuff, because with the launch of the Patreon, it's all just getting a little bit bigger than I can handle in my regular planner. It's too chaotic with all of my personal stuff as well. So I have this just for Tarot Magpie things. And this is here to represent, like I said, that kind of organized, orderly feeling that I've been craving. August was a busy month, so it is partly I've been craving this kind of organized stability. I'm a Virgo rising, okay? We're in Virgo season. This is my time. September's a good month for me. I'm a Virgo rising, I'm a Libra sun. It feels correct and very much this like more, not so much analytical as just being discerning and measuring things down and laying things out. That's very much the energy right now. The Virgo influence is strong. So here we have my monthly planner. I've got a couple of books which are just exemplifying the things that I'm really into right now. I have started reading this one. This is The Web of Meaning. You can see I have been tabbing it. This is written by Jeremy Lent. I am really enjoying this book so far. It is right up my street. It is meshing together this like scientific perspective with traditional wisdom, which is a very broad umbrella term, but it is trying to take a holistic view of the scientific paradigm, what we understand and can measure in a scientific way, with more traditional wisdom. I think it goes into some Buddhism. There's some of the Tao in here, and also indigenous wisdom. I've yet to see what indigenous wisdom. I've just not got that far in the book yet. I'm about 50 pages in, and these later tabs towards the end of the book are because this book is gloriously referenced. There are pages and pages of further reading for each chapter, and then the notes and the references from each chapter. There's also a glossary and an index. all non-fiction books should be written like this. I'm feeling a little bit academic. It's that back to school season, even though I'm not going back to school. I haven't done that in a good few years. And it's the Virgo, it's the analytical, it's the digesting, it's the breaking things down. So this thematically, right up my street always, really into it right now. And then also that academic side of things that I am a bit of an academic at heart. So this is the energy. And then here, this is C.G. Jung's collected works, The Basics. This is by Anne Yeoman and Kevin Liu. And this is, I believe, a very new publication from Routledge. And it's just, essentially it's a primer on Jung's work. I have been wanting to get into reading some of Jung's stuff, reading some more psychology, particularly Carl Jung, because obviously there is a big connection between Jungian psychology and the tarot. I've never known where to begin, so I just picked this up. I'm not versed in psychology in any real way, so I thought this is as good an entry point as any. I'm hoping to get into it sooner rather than later. This also representing that like academic back to school kind of thing that I'm feeling right now. So that are the books. Finally, last but not least, this is a teeny tiny little spell jar that I made 100 years ago. This is a sleep spell jar that I made. And this is here to represent the kind of practical side of witchery and adjacent things that I've been really feeling lately. I made a little spell jar for my partner, not this one obviously, and I've been really liking spending time at my altar space and being in that physical space. So that's something that's been really, really tickling my brain lately. It's been feeling really good. That like practical witchcrafty side of things also very much present and at the top of my brain. So to recap, the vibes are organized, they are domestic, they are academic, and they are witchy. It's a little bit dark academia, kind of in name only. I'm not really a dark academia girly like all of the dark academia girlies. I'm not cool enough / I have no desire to learn Latin. To roll right into the decks. Terra Volatile. I just said dark academia, but not like the dark academia girlies. But is this not a dark academia girly deck? Quick point of note, when I say girly, I'm using it in like a gender neutral way. One is a dark academia girly regardless of gender presentation or identity. Anywho, the Terra Volatile. It's dark, it's moody. I realise that isn't something I really touched on, but obviously summer's drawing to a close, autumn is coming. I personally, this is the main reason I'm not a dark academia girly, I never ever wish for the summer to be over. I am not that person. I get cold, and being physically cold is the feeling of depression to me. So I am never one to egg on the autumn and the winter. I love cozy season as much as the rest of you. I love to be bundled up in a blanket with a candle and a book, but I also like to be warm and see the sunshine and get some vitamin D. So I am not wishing the summer away, but at the same time, autumn is coming and I fully intend to enjoy it while it's here, lean into all the coziness. So there is definitely some of that reflected in some of these decks. They're kind of a bit dark and cozy. The Terra Volatile just felt correct for September and for what I'm feeling right now. This is also a deck that I really love and I feel like I haven't been pulling it out lately. It's been sitting in an area of my tarot collection that is just physically a little bit harder for me to access. I'm planning on doing a big huge overhaul of my storage and book deck organization because it's just not really doing the trick. But I've not been reaching for this, is my point. And I want to be reaching for this. I love this deck. In the spirit of academics, I don't actually have it with me right now, but this deck does come with an additional Vessels suit, which I haven't really done much, if anything, with, and I would quite like to dive into that and maybe start using that. And the alchemical nature of that suit feels very like dark academia-y and esoteric and much cooler than I actually am in real life. I want to get into it. So that's the Terra Volatile. Sticking somewhat with the like dark academia vibe train, I've got the Circe Tarot. This is a new one to me. I did a whole video about this, kind of playing with it a little bit, getting to know it. I haven't really worked with it much since then, but I feel like now is its time. The Greek mythology always feels dark academia adjacent. Also, the color palette of this, and I believe I said it in the video that was about this deck, the color palette of this feels late summer. It feels like hot, dry, late summer. And dry, maybe not a thing that we really get in the UK, but I am anticipating a little bit of a, maybe not quite a heat wave, but a little like heat wiggle in September, because we do usually get that. It's been kind of dark and gloomy and chilly for the last few days here, but I am anticipating we get a little bit of a last hurrah of summery weather, which is what this deck feels like to me. It's when you get that like unexpected second wave of summer in September. So that's why this deck is here. Also, one of the books that I want to read is The Odyssey. Maybe September will be the month that that happens. I don't quite believe it as I say it, but we'll see. Regardless, this deck is totally beautiful. I want to play with it, which frankly is the only reason I need to put a deck on this list. But I do think it kind of hits that late summer dark academia sort of energy. So that is the Circe Tarot. All right, the Influence of the Angels Tarot. This is actually my Virgo season deck in my tarot journal that I have decided to work with. This nearly was on its way out of my collection, but I've decided to give another chance. I just suddenly realized this felt like the right deck to use for Virgo season. I don't know, something about angels, and then Virgo is the Virgin, and like I know that those things don't conflate, but they feel like they should. And it's based on vibes. So I'm using this already, but also this, it's dark academia adjacent, but it's also kind of goofy and silly. Like, what's happening here? Like the classical imagery is dark academia adjacent. The kind of wonky, not wonky, but like out of place collaging in some of these cards feels kind of goofy and a little bit like, it feels like own brand dark academia, you know? And I feel like this really does set the tone in a lot of ways for what I'm feeling drawn to right now. And we're a few days into Virgo season. I've been using this and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm kind of hoping that this is this deck's time to shine and that I will finally really fall for it. And if I don't, that's fine, I'll pass it on. All right, this one's a little bit of a wild card. This is the Gustave Doré Tarot. I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly. I should have looked up how to pronounce his name. This again, this feels like dark academia in vibes. This is a new deck to me. I have flipped through it, and then I did a 2-card reading for myself that was extremely harsh. Then I haven't picked it up since. But I'm on a black and white deck kick at the moment, and I feel like, you know, sitting this between like the Influence of the Angels and the Tarot Volatile, I feel like stylistically works, and it just blends in. It works really well. If I want to feel a little bit pretentious and dark academia-ish, I can whip this deck out. What I want to do with this deck is to go through, and hopefully somebody on the internet has already done this, but I want to find out which illustration or painting or whatever the art on the cards is from, and then make up a list of, so I can, you know, say I pull the 5 of Pentacles, I can know which artwork that's from. I can look it up, I can read a little bit about it and use that to get to kind of figure out the style of this deck. I had flipped through this a good couple of times before I actually bought it, because I bought it in real life from a shop that had example decks. So I knew that I really loved the way the artwork came across in person. Some decks are like that. I'm not sure this one comes across as effectively over camera, but I love it in person. But I would like to know a little bit more about the specific artworks. I know there's a lot of biblical stuff. That's about it. I'd love to do a bit more of an in-depth study on this. That's not going to happen in September. I'm calling it now. I'm going to be too busy. I'm going to want to put my focus on other things, but I would like to keep this out in case I feel like reaching for it. Maybe having it out and accessible will prompt me to look up the artist and maybe find out a little bit more and kind of start that process. So that is the Gustave Doré. This is the Practical Witchcraft deck. So this is the deck that matches up with my current love of doing herby, crystal-y things and spending time at my altar. This is the Herbal Astrology oracle. I have been playing with this for however long I've had it, a couple of months I think, and I've been really liking pairing this with the Sistine Tarot actually. This deck is one that I want to use in a more practical sense. This is, I think it's primarily a herbal oracle. Then the astrology is also tied in. So you can see on the cards, like here, we've got calendula, purity, and then we've got the astrological symbols up top. So calendula here is linked with the sun. But the guidebook, I feel, spends more time on the herbs than the astrology, at least in the entries I've read so far. But it does group them by astrological association, so I can, choose to have a look at all the Venus associated herbs, for instance, or I could look specifically for herbs because there are some I'm familiar with and use, and then there are some that are not so familiar to me, but I can use it in a bit more of a practical way. I can use it in a bit more of a way that I feel like directs my learning and my explorations of things. And I do intend to use it more in that sense than in a more typical pull an oracle tarot card combination. So that's how I'm intending to use it this month. Again, as always, we'll see what actually comes about. I like the way the entries in the guidebook are written. It's accessible and it feels informative, but beginner friendly, and I do consider myself a beginner, especially to working with, for instance, herbs in the sense of more traditional correspondences and in the sense of maybe medicinal uses, for instance. This deck is the practical witchery deck of the moment for me, and that is how I intend to use it. And I've been really enjoying using it, and I'm looking forward to getting to know it in a slightly different way than I have done so far. Okay, I've got a couple of pairs. Before I do that, I'm going to pull out the Midnight Magic. This is a cozy deck. I think I did the cozy decks video. Did I do the cozy decks video? I'm sure I did. But if I didn't, this is a cozy fucking deck. The nighttime, the black backgrounds, the kind of sense of peace and calm of the night and of being held by the night comes across to me in this deck. It's a very positive spin on the cold dark nights drawing in, which is the thing I get a little bit emotionally turbulent about during the cold dark months, let's say. Whereas this feels much more comforting and comfortable. And like when I brought out the cooking clippings and the feeling a little bit cozy and domestic, this encapsulates that kind of energy. I don't have a lot of like comfy cozy decks. Like, no, that's not true. I have decks that feel a bit cozy, but I don't have like the more kind of cute domestic kind of cozy. I have decks like this that feel comfortable and that bring up that kind of cozy, safe sense, not in maybe a traditional cozy sense. I don't know. I could very easily also pull out the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg, which was the deck I chose for the hot toddy cozy deck prompt in Sapling Tarot's Tarot Bartender tag, but that feels like winter cozy. This just feels like comfortable cozy, dark cozy, all year round cozy. I've said the word cozy too many times, it's lost all meaning. It feels like a back to basics deck in the same way that the Influence of the Angels does. This is not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, obviously, it's full of mushrooms. In a reading, it also feels comfortable in a reading, is what I'm saying. All right, I'm going to finish off with some pairings. So first up, I've got the Moonology Oracle, which is new to me, and the Tarot of a Moon Garden, which is less new to me, but I feel like I've only really kicked into gear with working with it in the last few weeks. So the Oracle is new to me. I got this at the same time as I got the Prairie Majesty, which I did a video about in the Hay House sale. This is quite a like love and light, wishy-washy, good vibes only kind of deck, but it was cheap and I love the aesthetic and I just wanted it. It's soft and gentle and good vibes only enough that I feel that without tipping over into uselessly toxic positivity or just platitudes, So I've been liking this. I have mostly been using this. I've been pulling a card in the morning. I've been keeping it by my bed, and I've actually mostly been using this for my partner. I haven't been pulling cards for myself. I've been pulling cards for them. but I have recently been using it with Tarot of a Moon Garden, which is itself quite a nurturing deck, honestly. It's got a gentleness to it and a whimsy to it that I think thematically works, and also they're both moon decks, so I really like using them together for that. They both just feel kind. It's a kind pairing. So again, what I was talking about with the cooking clips book, it's a bit nurturing, it's a bit kind, it's just nice. And nice is so often used as a bit of a, maybe not negative, but just bland kind of word, but I don't mean it in that way. I mean, it's just, it's kind, it's nice, it's pleasant. And sometimes that's all I want, and I think all any of us want sometimes. Like, mostly I want a bit more of a productive kind deck. If I'm feeling a bit low or feeling a bit stressed or feeling a bit whatever, I usually want something that's a little bit more productive, a little bit more practical. And personally, I like a bit of a kick up the arse more than a there, everything will be okay. These kind of gentle readings are also practical and they're also productive in their own way. And I've really been feeling that recently, and I'm kind of feeling that going into September. I've been liking this and I want to keep liking this. Okay, finally, the last pair of decks, totally different energy. It is the Medieval Feathers Tarot, which is newer in my collection. I did a walkthrough first impressions of this. I haven't really picked it up since. And the Urban Crow Oracle. I think the Urban Crow was a deck that I paired this with when I did my walkthrough, and I have used it a couple of times and they work so well, but they're kind of a little bit harsher. The Urban Crow Oracle is not harsh, it's not unnecessarily harsh, but it is a little bit of like a harsh reality check. Not a harsh reality check, a reminder that reality can be harsh. Does that make sense? And then that combined with there's a practicality to a Marseille. Just the black and white imagery and the way that you read a Marseille is different to the way, well, you can do whatever you like, but traditionally a Marseille is read in a slightly more practical way than a Rider-Waite-Smith, which is heavy on the symbolism and the intuition. Together, these feel like the kind of opposite of the moon pair, not the opposite of the moon pairing, but a complement to the moon pairing. This is where the moon pairing is kind and nurturing. This is like, okay, and you still gotta get shit done. You still gotta fill your planner out and do your tasks. And there's no point in being organized and making all these nice plans for yourself if you're not going to follow through. That's the kind of energy I get from this pairing, and I think it's a good counterpoint to the moon pairing. This is a little bit more like, okay, and? Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. So yeah, two quite different energies with the pairings there, but they're both tested, so I know they work. And I think that's also something I'm wanting for September is, although I've got all this like stuff I could research and stuff I could read the Odyssey about, and extra suits I could be learning, September's going to be busy in a different way to August. August was very socially busy. I had stuff happening, I had things on. I was here, there, and everywhere. My partner was here, there, and everywhere. September's going to be busy in a working way, in a like my to-do list is big and I have lots of things to achieve, and because I have a much quieter social life, I have the time to actually do those things. So it is a bit more of like a head down and get shit done kind of month. And I kind of want to do a lot of stuff. So having these pairings that I know work, and I've got these other decks, I can do some like practical witchy stuff. I can kind of dive into these decks that I'm less familiar with and maybe do some supplementary reading, or I can just stick with my familiar Rider-Waite-Smith based decks. Like, I think this is I've really got that balance of like functional and interesting and nurturing where it needs to be nurturing, but also expansive where it needs to be expansive. And I've got the like academic side of things as well as the like spiritual side of things. Appropriate coming, because obviously Libra season starts in September, so having that balance feels very appropriate. So that is all the decks. I'm going to put these boxes away. I'm going to grab some books. I'm already reading The Web of Meaning. I've already spoken about it. This, obviously, I'm going to keep reading. I'm loving it. I, at some point, will work through the notes sections and the further readings and write a big old list of stuff that looks interesting, which is as fun as reading the book itself, is it not? I'm also currently reading Star Codes by Heather Rowan Robbins. I also bought this in the Hay House sale recently. Whenever I next do a haul video, I have a feeling it's going to be a big one. But I am... where am I? I'm kind of on page 72, but I've kind of been flipping through because it talks about the planets and the signs, so I've kind of read and tabbed my signatures, and I'm flip-flopping, but I'm really liking this. I will do a bit more of a review once I have actually finished reading, but I really like the way that she writes, and some of the word choices and some of the way she phrases stuff is just, it clicks in my brain. I've been really liking it. The thing that stands out to me was the keywords that she uses for the signs. So we've got like Aries, activate, Taurus, cultivate, Gemini, cross-pollinate, and then the Virgo, digest. Good words. Really liking this. I will, at the end of reading this, decide whether or not I want to get her deck, but I'm really liking this. And then along with this, I'm also still working through Astrology for Yourself. I've done a fair chunk in August actually, but I'm not rushing it. What would be the point? So these are still very much on the docket. Also, already mentioned in this video, Young's collected works. I anticipate this is going to take me a long time to get through. I see no point in rushing it. I might take some notes alongside it. I might just read and tab the things to give myself a reading list of what I want to get to next. I'm not sure, but I want to start this in September. Another non-negotiable is New Directions in Tarot by Scott Martin. This is my Patreon book club book for September and October. If you're in the fledglings tier, then we're going to be reading this book together. So I want to get through half of this in September. I've like tabbed up the different sections. This looks so interesting. Obviously, I wouldn't pick a boring book for a book club, but decoding the tarot illustrations of Pamela Coleman Smith from a like stage play perspective. So we've got the structure of a play, and there's spreads and like actors' positions on stage, and it goes card by card through the minors of like the cards that are facing in one direction or staring straight at the viewer, and what that means in a play dramatic sense. And then there's a whole bunch of spreads, there's a whole bunch of activities. This looks so cool. It looks like it's definitely gonna open some stuff up for how I see the cards, because I am not a dramatics person. Well, I can be dramatic, but you know what I mean. I'm not like a theatre kid. So this is not something I've ever considered before. I can safely say this is a new perspective for me, so I'm very excited to get into it. Right, some more non-fiction to go alongside the decks that I've got. I don't know if I'll read it, but The Odyssey by Homer, but the translation by Emily Wilson. I can't wait to read this. I have been waiting for years, so that's a lie. But maybe I'll get to it now that I've got the Circe Tarot kind of relighting that interest for me. I read a different translation for Odyssey for one of my A-levels half a lifetime ago now. That's terrifying. I want to read it. I don't know if it'll happen this month. Also on the Greek train, this is Red Thread by Charlotte Higgins. I've had this for a year. I have not cracked it open. And I don't think this is specifically or solely about Greek myth, but it is heavily inspired by Theseus, the Minotaur, the Labyrinth, Ariadne. I would like to start this. This is going to be one that sits next to my bed, and I will just dip in and out as I feel called to do so. Another dipping in and out book is going to be Self by Barry Dainton. This is a philosophy book. I don't know anything about philosophy, so I just thought this looked readable and interesting, and I will see what I think. I don't know anything about the author. I don't know if these ideas are considered good or bad or what have you. I will read it and figure it out for myself. I also have Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. I've had this for 100 years. I've had this since it was published in, I want to say 2020. Yes, 2020. I've had this for 4 years. I no longer allow myself to buy hardcover books unless I know for a fact I'm going to read them immediately. But this is about fungi and I think it's extremely freaking cool. I just haven't read the book. So this also gonna live by my bed. I'm gonna dip in and out as I see fit. Finally, on the nonfiction front, I have Plant Magic by Gregory J. Kennisser. And I thought this would be good to have alongside the Herbology Astrology Oracle. So when I pull a card from this, I can see if that herb or that plant is also in this book and just read the associated information. I already have this book and that seems like a practical thing to be doing with my practical witchcrafty kind of deck. That's all the nonfiction. Fiction wise, I have finally started listening to the Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. I've read the first two or listened to the first two. I have the third on hold from my library, which has the whole series. I plan to continue working through that. It's fucked up fairy tales, kind of. I'm loving it. I also just recently finished Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This was a reread for me, but Parable of the Talents will be a first-time read because I didn't read the sequel the first time around. So I was rereading The Sower to remember what happened, frankly, because I think I first read this when I was having a traumatizing time, and so I don't remember anything I actually read during that period. I've had to do a lot of rereading, which is fine. I love a reread, but I'm glad I did. Obviously, it was fantastic. It was Octavia E. Butler, and I'm going to be diving into Parable of the Talents. I think this is like the following generation, perhaps. I'm not sure, but I am looking forward to it. I imagine it will not be a particularly easy read, but I'm looking forward to reading it all the same. So, very nonfiction heavy looking this month. We'll see what I actually read. I will, of course, catch you up at the end of the month when I do a little September wrap up. Again, let me know if you care about books or if you're just here for the decks. I will not be offended, but let me know. So, that's everything from me for this video. All of the books and decks and things I plan on working with in September, kind of the vibes I'm feeling at the moment. Let me know if you're also feeling this like organizational back to school, like I feel like I need to be getting everything squared away. We're not anywhere near the end of the year. We have 4 more months of this year, but it's that back to school vibe. It's like, right, it's a little bit of a fresh start. Like I've got a chance to really get organized, really get things in order for the last 4 months of the year and like finish out 2024 feeling good. So that's where I'm at. I hope that wherever you're at, you're doing good. I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, I really hope that you've enjoyed. Drop me a comment, give me a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.